got one question for you. Are you ready?
Hey,
Yeah.
there.
That's some smoking intro music there.
Right. A double intro. Usually it's just the one, that last one, but
Yeah, both of them. The first one was a little funky thing, and that last one was a metallic explosion.
That's right. I'm trying to do a little something different because because you're making some really cool things, James, and I want to highlight those. Those little snippet videos, those intro videos are really cool. I love them. So we're throwing those on Instagram, but I was like, hey, let me try it on the intro for the for the show and see how that fits. And we'll see how I feel about it. We'll talk about it. But guess who's in the house? We got Tom Guerra in the house. What's going on? He has a new album out. We are looking forward to talking about, of course, desserts and his new album and his music, of course. What's going on, Tom? How are you?
Oh, that's great, man. Everybody's doing well, and we're kind of, I don't know, I guess we're coming out of a crazy time, and it's little by little, but we're trucking on, and we're making new music, and talk about some tasty desserts too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
James, I know this has been a tough couple weeks, my friend, and we're moving on. We're being positive. We got your back, my friend. We do. So, however, I know that things are a little crazy still. But how are you doing, man? How are you doing?
I'm holding up. It's still a little rough, still a little fresh. Well, it's going to be fresh for a while. Just a really unexpected loss, and just something that we kind of have to move forward with, but still, keep in remembrance of her. So,
yeah, we got much love for you, buddy. You know that. So. And so with that, we're, of course, going to steer on to our very fun segment about desserts and food. So, of course, the guest has come in, and guess what? I hear that he has actually a dessert in the form of some liquid. What do you got going on, Tom?
Oh, just the classic old fashioned tonight.
Oh,
nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. What is it that you have in this old fashioned? What kind of alcohols are you talking about? Like
it's not really the classic. It's just straight bourbon. So I was trying to be like, a little classy or whatever.
It's okay. Straight bourbon's fine. But what do you got? What are we drinking? What bourbon?
Kind of bourbon.
It's Kentucky bourbon. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
The kind that you will like. What's really interesting is we have a couple friends from Kentucky. One of my friends, Ken, and he lives in that, and it's just like everywhere is a distillery.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's crazy good stuff. And one of my friends is dead set on some of the trying out different, like at least all the ones he can try to find. So I'm always like, there's just so many. There's
so many now. It's like there's designer stuff,
Right,
and
right.
In the old days, there were two of them basically, but 2 or 3 of them. But yeah, I just sip. I don't inhale, as Bill Clinton said, right? I don't think he actually exhaled.
That's right. He didn't. Yeah, not at all. You just don't do that when you do that kind of stuff.
Right.
You don't do that. So anyway, so that is really good dessert still. Bourbon is always, that's always a really great option. And we've had plenty of people coming in with tequila. So now we're going bourbon. So he's more on the East Coast. He's sitting right in Connecticut, and of course that's sitting right in that, right next to some of that great bourbon. So
Well, yeah, it's a little north of it, but I mean, there's
Yeah.
all the crazy thing is there's all these breweries, like microbreweries popping up around here. That's like the big thing now, and some vineyards down in the southern part of the state too. And the wine's not bad. Some of the wine's pretty good that they're making.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting. I wonder if they'll make some of that ice wine because Germany's known in the north area of Germany. A lot of that ice wine comes out. So I wonder if that Connecticut kind of connects with some of that, which would be
Huh?
really good. It's really good. I mean,
Does it?
yeah, it is really good. I used to be a big into wine quite a bit. I'm more of a Melbeck type guy.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So, but I enjoy what they're doing. Arizona has that same kind of renaissance. And we were up in Camp Verde this week, and there's a ton of vineyards in that area now. So, it started off with Maynard from Tool.
Yeah.
He had one
Yes.
up.
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, I was telling you we were going to go out there and we were supposed to stay. It was something wood or something.
Yep. Cottonwood. Yep.
Cottonwood. Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So there's a ton of vineyards in that area now. And now there's a festival for just wine. It's just amazing. And up in that area, there's a little town called Jerome. They have about probably 10 different wine tasting places in that little town. So it's turned into like an eclectic artistic wine town. So really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you finally do get those the air flights figured out, you'll definitely have to go check it out. It is really, really good. So, what did I bring? I can't compete with the man. So again, I have found my way. I have found my way to eating gold
Easter?
Bears, Easter gold bears. So these are gummy bears, but they're from Easter. So they were freshly stolen out of grandson's basket because he's 2 or 3 and he probably won't know any better.
Right.
So
I love gummies, man. I love gummy bears. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for them. I love gummy bears.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who wouldn't be a fan of gummy bears?
When I was a kid, there was this German butcher in Hartford, and it was right near the place we would go to get our haircuts, which we hated because they'd want to take all our hair off, and we were young rock and rollers even back then. But we go into this German place, and it was the first gummy bears I've ever seen, the original Haribos, and they were like 25 cents, and you'd get some, and they were so delicious,
They are really good. And so that's exactly kind of my experience. So I lived overseas, and there was from Germany, they'd have like this shop in one of the British shops. They had gummy bears, and it was like the thing. It was like oh, yes. Yes. I absolutely loved them. And then from then on, I just, I think we have them in everything now. And then, they now sell them everywhere. So it's not like you can't get them. So it's really cool.
My brother puts them in, he drinks straight vodka on the rocks, and he puts gummy bears in. I had never heard of that. I don't know if it's something he did or if they kind of get hard and chewy that way, but they probably melt.
There's actually somebody that does, I don't know how I came across him, but he actually does experiments. He's a mixologist, he's a bartender, but he does videos, and he'll put experiments like he did gummy bears. I think he did like blood oranges and gin or something like that for a week straight. He let it stay in like a mason jar for a week, and then he tried it, and it's like the best thing ever.
Oh
but
yeah, that would be great.
He's done Starburst, he's done jelly beans, like all that stuff.
You gotta love things where you're creative with alcohol. I love some of I've ran into some places that do ice cream and alcohol.
Okay.
And it's spectacular. It's like the best of both worlds. It's like an adult beverage plus it's your favorite treat.
Yep.
So you can't beat something like that.
When I was a kid, we used to take a watermelon and put a liter of grain alcohol into it. I mean, I guess you'd call that infusion these days, but
you would,
not we would just, cut the thing open and eat the watermelon. And I mean, that stuff, Graves grain, appropriately titled Graves, man, it was wicked.
It is, and they like so college in my college days they called that jungle juice.
Yeah.
It would be like watermelon plus some pineapple plus whatever was cheap on sale at the grocery store, and then you just throw it in a big, huge, black trash bag
Yeah.
and soak it overnight, and then the party's on next day. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, it's good stuff. So, my friend, you know what James is all about, the amazing desserts. And so I can't compete. I bow down to the man who told me, oh, this is just simple.
Effort. That's why it's called effort. You gotta put effort. That's why I say like A for effort. So,
hey, to steal candy, stealing
from
candy
a baby. Yeah.
It really, I did steal candy from a baby. I did steal candy from a baby. Yes, I did. He's my grandson.
But I made a simple parfait, a little fruit parfait.
Oh, it looks delicious.
Yeah, it's a little granola, some Greek yogurt, Greek vanilla yogurt, and layered with the granola and the fruit. A little bit of strawberry puree on top. It's really good.
Yeah. Oh. Did you use plain yogurt or vanilla?
This is vanilla. I use vanilla Greek yogurt.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice. Really healthy for you, even healthy.
Yep.
Do you know what's really interesting about Greek yogurt is it has all of these nutritional things that go into it, and it still tastes good to me. I like it. Some people don't like the taste of Greek yogurt, but I found out recently that it helps actually with digestion. So I was like, wow, heck, it's a dessert and
it's like 32% protein or per like a quarter cup or 3/4 of a cup. I think 3/4 of a cup.
Hey, I have something else that's a lot of protein.
Did you steal that too?
I did. I stole that from the same kid. Yes. That was last time's dessert, but I still have it because I haven't been back to this area.
A 1 pound chocolate Reese's bunny somehow, and he's still here. So
wow.
Cool.
So right after that, I realized what a really big chunk I was, and I've been on a diet ever since. So I usually just I steal these things, and then I look at them, and then I usually give them back for the most part because I've lost about 15 pounds. So
nice.
Yeah, so it's been about a month. I've lost about 10, 15 pounds. Yeah, so
not drinking soda too as well. So I cut back on soda since I think I'm on like day 7 right now. No soda. So
are you feeling like are you pissed? Are you like, hey, I need that caffeine. I need the.
I think the headache. You get the headaches the first couple of days, I think, but then it goes away. Cause I remember waking up with and I had a headache. I'm like, geez, I'm taking aspirin. I'm like, Lord, but I'm trying to I'll have some sugar, nothing but a piece of candy or something like that. But soda, I've cut that out just for right now. So
good for you, man. That's awesome. That's good to hear. We'll keep track of our weight loss journey on the IGs, and hopefully I'll show some pictures once I feel more comfortable enough to not look like a fat man. I'll be like okay with the before, hey, here's the fat man before, but then I have to really lose all the weight, so then I look really good. Look at this guy. He's like, wow, he's amazing looking. You always have to have the other picture first. You always have to have the good looking picture.
You gotta do the jump or whatever, and then kind of paste it into to where it's jump, do the jump thing, and then when you lose all the weight, then you're jumping into a new body.
That's what I'm doing. That's it. You got it. I'm TikToking the heck out of this thing. So, Tom, we got a couple questions for you about food because this is the kind of show that we are.
Yeah.
And people want to know what you eat right before a gig. What is your go-to food before a gig? If you have one, is it just a drink?
No, I don't drink when I'm playing because I've heard the tapes. But typically before we do a gig, I'll have something that's got a lot of carbs in it, just because it will burn them off. We play a lot at a place in Hartford that's called Black Eyed Sally's. That's a Cajun restaurant. So I'll always get a bowl of gumbo. Maybe jambalaya, that type of thing, and just have something that's not, you don't want to go on feeling like, whoa, but
Right.
You want to have some food in your belly because you're going to burn it off. But yeah, that's kind of typically what I eat. I mean,
That's the thing. That what's interesting is that I can totally see that because you will burn all of that off, and because it's not empty carbs, but it's also giving you that energy throughout instead of like a quick burst of like caffeine or something.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to have anything real sweet because you're going to feel great for about 15 minutes and then kind of crash. But I love I love desserts and I love sweets, but I have them kind of on special occasions typically.
Good idea. Very good idea. And what we're trying to do is, especially Tom, you've been playing since the 80s. I mean,
Yeah.
80s. And so I think that what I want to convey is that to younger folks is this is the way to go right here. He's a seasoned veteran telling you what to eat before a gig because this will keep your energy levels up. And also because you're going to be doing a 2-hour show. Hopefully, most people
Easily.
will easily be doing a 2-hour show. So losing energy halfway through or 15 minutes in is a bummer.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, but anything is decent in moderation. Like, in the old days when I first started out, I mean, I had my first gig. I think I was 15 years old. And it was a different time because we were pretty hardcore, and everybody was, the band was drinking as much as the people in the clubs, and it was a pretty crazy time. And but after a while, it's like you can't do that anymore. You can't do that and be any decent. At least it got to the point for me where I stopped drinking and playing about 30 years ago, and maybe even more, about 35 years ago. And I like it better. I love playing, and I want to do my best,
Well, also, I think you pick up the energy from the crowd better. I'm sure that's the case. Is that you're just picking up that energy, which is that vibe that you get from a live audience.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's cool. That's really cool. And so our second question is you're out on the road. And what is your go-to place out on the road? Like, hey, I am out in the road. What is are you going to go to a local restaurant, or you have a chain in mind? This is what I'm always going to go to.
Typically local, local restaurant, figure out, what the locals eat. And that's what you want to eat when you're traveling,
Support the small.
Can't handle the fast food thing. It's just, that's brutal,
I agree with you, and I can't imagine. And see, again, seasoned veteran, knowing, and I'm a foodie, so of course that is where I'm going to. I want to find local food, that's like nobody else will know. Everybody else knows what this is, but only locally.
Yeah,
love it. Love it. So this is where we do our wonderful transition to music. And we have so many good questions. I mean, I'm a guitarist, so that I know what you've done with this last album, and it is simply amazing. I have no, and it's because I know what went into all of it to make that balanced rock and roll, fun lyrics. You just hit it out of the park with different genre. I mean, you have a Motown hit in the middle of this. You have some really funny lyrics that are awesome. Absolutely dug what you did, and some killer riffs and solos.
Thank you.
Yeah. I listened to it. I think I listened to it yesterday. I listened to it back to back today at work.
Cool.
So, right after, it's literally right after the last one. Right after a song from Mark Easton, and I listened straight up to it again. I had it on loop.
Oh, that's cool. I'm glad that it was weird when I was recording this and writing for it. It was really in the early days in the middle of the pandemic, and so I wrote all these songs. I actually wrote about, I think, 15 or 16 songs, and I took 11 of them and said, okay, I'm gonna concentrate on these 11 and develop them. And so after it was mixed, it went to mastering, and it was mastered by a guy out in Chicago, great great guy by the name of John Scripp, Massive Mastering, and he said, this sounds like 2 years of being in pent up lockdown, just a lot of energy trying to burst out, and I didn't even realize that, but that's kind of what I think happened. The last one was acoustic. It was sort of melodic and acoustic, and this one has a little bit more teeth to it.
That's exactly. I said this was one of those ones that it's multi-genre. You can't pinpoint the songs are, you have some songs that I would say would be great 70s songs almost. I was like trying to figure out your influences. I was like, I can hear 70s, Led Zeppelin and some of those Jimmy Page and some of those classic guitarists. I can hear also some of the 60s vibes coming out. I can hear a little bit of Beach Boys in there.
Yeah, it's all in there. It's all in the big, you put it in the
good.
blender, and this is what comes out.
So good, man. So good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome that you even had. I didn't even know you had him on there, but I didn't know you had John Butcher on there.
Yeah.
Like when I heard the Bob Dylan cover, I thought that was really good as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, John. I played on his last album, and then he played on 2 albums ago. I had an album called American Garden, and he played on a song on that, and it was great. I mean, that song's called Blood on the New Rising Sun. But I had written this song called California's Got to My Girl, and he's like, "What are you working on?" And he called me up, and I said, "Oh, I just wrote this kind of soul tune," and I said, "I sang it," and he's like, "Let me hear it," and I played it for him, and he's like, he really liked the song. He's like, "Dude," he goes, "I could really sing this song." I said, "You want to sing it, man? Sing it." So he sang the whole thing, and I'm like, "Well, I want to sing some of it." So I sang the second verse about Manson, So
I saw that.
He was cool about like, yeah, you can take that one. I'm like, "Oh, thanks."
I want some of it.
Yeah.
Beach Boys and Manson.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. That's what I got. Like a lot of it, like a few of the songs, like they remind me of just like, cause I'm originally from California.
Yep.
I moved to Florida when I was 12, but like it was just a good like that California vibe. Like you're riding down like PCH and just like by the beach and listening to that. That's what.
That's. I was talking to a couple people in the business, and they're like, "This could be the summer hit of the summer." I'm like, "Hey, man, I'd love that. How do we make that happen? But we're pushing it. I'm going on a bunch of podcasts like your show, your great show here, and getting the word out. And that's really the thing that I'm pushing right now.
Yeah, that's cool, man. And it is a great album. So Sentimental Junk is the name of the album for everyone out there.
Yeah.
I mean, you just have to listen to it. If you are into great vocals, great lyrics, great balance between, it's a band. I think it just really is a great album. There's a lot of balance going on. But then, of course, as a guitarist, and I know that you are, you've been writing for Guitar Player magazine, you've been writing for different magazines for some time now, as well as playing, of course. I was looking forward to the guitar part. I'll be honest with you. Knowing your background, I was looking forward to that, and you did not disappoint whatsoever.
Oh, that's good. Wow. That's good. I mean, it's a tough thing because I've got friends who are like, you got to make a guitar instrumental album. I'm like, even less people would buy that, and I'd like to do that someday, but I don't know. I kind of, when I was younger, I was like really into the, everybody goes through a phase where they're into guitar heroes and everything. And part of me always would be into those guys that I love as guitar heroes. But I kind of wanted it to be more songs. I've really been focusing on my writing. And the guitar is, that's the icing. That's the frosting on the cake. But you need the cake. You got to have a good cake. And that's kind of where my head's at.
I
use a 57 Strat.
Yeah, that was the one I used on most of the record, and I was just playing it about an hour ago, and it just, for whatever reason, that's the guitar I reach for now, and it's beat but it sounds great,
Yeah,
it does sound.
I like that. I just like that the how harmonic and just how it flows. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
I like that sound.
Me too. Me too. Yeah, it's got a. I mean, it is. You can't play it for every style of music, but for the stuff I'm playing,
Right.
I mean, I got that guitar and I plugged it in, and it reminded me of like Roy Buchanan's Telecaster. Just it had that real biting sound, but not too trebly and brittle, but just really nice. I'm like, this is a good one, you know.
It was, and that was what I was trying to figure out. So I was like, it's a Strat. Is it a Telecaster? Is it a Strat? Is it what is what? It's a Strat. I could tell it was a Strat,
Yep.
and then
Yep.
I'm like, I think another song. Maybe he's playing a Telecaster in it, but I think he's definitely mostly playing a Strat in most of this.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then I was trying to figure out tone. I was like, what is he using for pedals? You know, because it has some of them had a really good driving rock beat that I just absolutely loved, like 70s, 80s rock. And I was like, man, what's he using to create that sound? And I was like, so then I got to ask you, what did you do to what past the 57 Strat? What are you pushing pedal wise? And then
really not a lot of pedals at all. I only used two overdrive pedals on the record. I used an old Ibanez Tube Screamer, which is the classic, I think from the early 80s, the green one.
Yep.
And then I used a pedal that actually another distortion pedal that a guy made for me. This guy by the name of Jimmy Photon made this pedal. I think he calls it the Statesboro Fuzz, which is, like Statesboro Blues or whatever. And I used that on the song. Actually, I used it on two songs. I used it on Eyes of the World, which was my tribute to Leslie West. And then I used it on Where's the New Rock and Roll, which is kind of a spoken word song, sort of tongue in cheek. But the whole song is about, the many ways to get screwed in the world of rock and roll. It's a rite of passage, But then, the other guitar that I used on a couple of songs that's a really cool, noteworthy guitar is on the song for Mark Easton, the instrumental that closes the album. I used Howlin' Wolf's 1963 Stratocaster, which I've been fortunate to have owned for about 25 years. It was in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for 5 years. It was in the Musical Instrument Museum in Phoenix for 3 years. Right by you, Andy, and I got it back right around the time COVID hit, and I'm like, I'm going to hang on to this thing for a while. And it's an incredible guitar, and it's got the history of being a very important guitar, so that's on there too.
I love that, love it, man. So are you more? So I'm taking it you're more the Fender Strat. Were you playing anything else before that, or you just more of a Strat
actually
man?
I got a song on there called Shadow Light, and I play actually right in back of me this side here, that silver guitar. It's a Zamitis, and that's I use that for an open tuning, kind of a Stonesy guitar, like something Ron Wood would play. I use that on Shadow Light, and used the Les Paul, which is right in back of that, the gold Les Paul, for the Leslie West tune, which is Eyes of the World. But most of the guitar parts were Strats, through either a Marshall amp, 50-watt Marshall amp, or a Colby amp, or a Fender Vibrolux reverb, an old Fender.
Nice.
And like I said, not a lot of pedals. I used one flanger on the solo of a song called "Let Me Learn to Let It Go," just because it's got a kind of a cool. It needed something cool like that, like a wah-wah or a flanger. So it's got a flanger solo on there. So it's kind of cool. Kind of comes out of nowhere and sounds pretty weird,
I love it. I love it, man. That's the cool thing about doing different songs on this album is that there's a different vibe for every song.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do, because I think I have the world's shortest attention span. So it's like I can't have two songs that sound too close, so I wanted to break it up a little bit, and I don't know, when I listen to an album, my favorite albums really weren't one-dimensional in terms of that. They had a lot of different stuff on it too.
Cool, very cool. James, what do you got, man? What do you got?
So I think I read that this is your debut with Thin Man Records.
Yes.
How's that experience been with like your
It's been great. So that's it's kind of a small label in Connecticut because I was just putting these out under my own. I have a label called Casa del Sol. My studio is called Casa del Sol Productions, and my publishing company is Casa del Sol Worldwide Productions. And these guys from Thin Man are really helping to get the word out for original artists in my area.
Yes.
And I was talking to him. One of them has a college radio show, and I was talking to him, and he's like, "Yeah, we could do that and help out and do some promo stuff." So it's it takes a village, and we're trying a lot of different things to get the word out. So it's been really cool so far.
That's cool. That is really cool. I think that it's interesting, and we kind of chatted about this, and I've talked to a lot of different artists about this, is that the label thing is more about services that they provide to help market your album and get it out there.
Yep.
And it's not as much what it used to be, which is you sign with a major record label. Now, there is some pluses still with going with major record labels, Capitals, because they're pushing your stuff automatically through the algorithm of Spotify and
Absolutely.
Apple Music. But a lot of abilities have happened because of technology to get a lot of different artists out, which is, now it's just an influx of really great artists hitting the market, and you can make your own, like you have your own home studio. You can do a lot of your mixing and stuff in your home studio. You said that you sent it out for mastery to a guy in Chicago, which is actually really smart because that's what their job is, to be a sound engineer.
Right. Absolutely. And I mean, I got to, I've been working in studios for a long time now, and know my way around. But when I get the final mix together, and I probably spent 2 months mixing this thing, and got to the point where I was happy with everything. I think that's what, when you're mixing, you listen to it the next day, and nothing stands out as being like, that needs to be louder, that needs to be softer, I got to re-EQ that or whatever. You get to that point, and when I'm mixing, I usually take away a lot of stuff. Like I'll record 3 or 4 guitar parts, but I'll take most of them out of the song for the majority of the song. So it's kind of like an iterative, or somebody said a subtractive process. But then when I'm done, I kind of step away from it. I send it out for mastering, and they'll come back to me a week or so or two later, saying, okay, check these out. And I'll go through, and on this one, I think we got probably 80% of it right on the first go round, the mastering. There were a couple of tunes I said, bass is a little too, full in that. I wanted to bring it back a little bit more. And on another one, there was some other thing that, it was just a kind of like a digital artifact that when recorded, I didn't really notice it, but when you master, you're kind of blowing everything, making everything sort of more present, more loud. And it surfaced. I'm like, ooh, that doesn't sound right. It was before I spoke a word. It was kind of like just a lip smacking thing, but it sounded like almost like a click or something. So I'm like, yeah. So I had actually remixed that and sent it to them, and they wrapped up the mastering, and then we were ready to go. But back to your question about what a label can do. In the old days, it was, you had to be on a label to get anything out there. Right. They controlled all the distribution. Now the distribution is like, when it frustrates me when somebody says, there's no good rock and roll out there anymore. There's hundreds of great rock and roll bands out there. You just gotta know what you're looking for, and you gotta dig a little bit. But there's great music being made today.
Even some of the guests that we've had on in the past, I'm like, really? Like how is this not like out? You know what I'm saying? It's just, that's why we like doing this, because it's just like we get to experience that the music that is not out there.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be rock. Rock and any kind of music at all that we've done or we've had on. It's been amazing.
Yeah, it's great. I was talking not too long ago to Ian Hunter, who's a great writer and former leader of Mott the Hoople, and he's a rock and roll star, and he's 80 years old now, but he's still doing it. But he said he had never been so miserable as when he was on a major label, because it was incredibly stressful, and you really had to play ball with the major label. Otherwise, they could bury your record if they wanted to. So there were a lot of games. Games have been going on in this business for a long, long time. And, now it's a little bit of Wild West like, in that, you're kind of competing against a lot more people. And I don't view this as a competition. I didn't mean music as a competition. I mean, there's just, there's a lot of noise out there. It's like in the old days when you watched news one time a day at 6:00. You watched Walter Cronkite, and that was it. You didn't think about it till the next day. Now everything is 24/7, and music's the same way. It's constantly, you're bombarded with stuff, and it's you got to kind of step away sometimes too.
Sure.
For me, what it is turned into our opportunity to meet with artists helps us find new acts, and if you start loading people that you're from, like some genres, like you do the Pandora thing, where so I'm listening to Tom Guerra, and what else is another song like that? Then you start getting these other things to start pop.
Yep.
Out of that same genre, some people that you may have not heard. It's weird. I was on YouTube Music. I was listening to your album today, and then all of a sudden, like a bunch of different folks showed up afterwards inside of the playlist, and I was like some of it was like Spanish, and I'm like, wow, how did the algorithm pick out of Tom Guerra's music?
Yeah.
Some Spanish, but it was guitar based, so it was like there was some parts that I was like, okay, I get it. There was some really nice, arrangement for the guitar in it. Yeah.
It's it is strange, and a lot of it is algorithm based, and I think people listen to music differently. Like when we were kids growing up, we listened to albums, and we read those albums. That's how we got our information about the bands we liked. We'd read the liner notes, and we'd try to read through the lines and see, what did they mean by that. And now everything is out there. But and I know I've got a son who's 19 years old, and he listens to a lot of music, lots of great music. And he's turned me on to some of these bands that he listens to, and I really like them. Some of the bands he's listening to are like Black Midi and Car Seat Headrest, and that guy from Car Seat Headrest, Will Toledo, he is a great songwriter. And I saw them live a couple years ago, actually a year before the pandemic, and they were excellent. So there's young people out there making great music still.
Absolutely. We've had a few on here. Mellow Minded was one of our most recent that you're just like blown away. But these kids are just maybe college age.
Yep.
Maybe a little bit, just college age. And you're just like, they have the foundations. They've been playing a while, and they have the foundation and know how to be able to create great music, which is good that we're passing that down. I thought I thought very, very long time that electronic stuff would be like the mainstream. People are just going to do a lot of electronics, R&B, and they're going to do sound, they're going to do just little snippets and things. Yeah. But there's still some great just musicians playing together. Folk rock is still kind of coming back. A lot of that indie rock. I was told by somebody at Coachella that said that there's a lot of people that are just throwing out the Fender Tweed and just throwing some overdrive and then playing. They're not even.
That's cool,
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think things have corrected themselves, because in the 70s we had everything was about the guitar hero. I mean, bands were named after the guitar player, even though they had a front man like Van Halen. It's about the guitar player. Robin Trower, the guitar player, he never sang. He had a great singer, James Dewar. The Jeff Beck Group, Rod Stewart was the singer, but it was called the Jeff Beck Group. And there was this hyper focus on guitar players, and I think there was like a backlash during the 80s when everything became about like MTV synth rock, and we thought like the guitar is dead, man, you know, and then it's not dead. It's just and people are making some really interesting music using both synthesizers and guitars, you know, and that's cool. I mean, you know, it's coming up with something new.
I really enjoy that, and it segues to what like my dad's trying to do. So he's doing MIDI in a grand piano with a with a MIDI strip on it,
Yeah.
so he can record that, and then he's putting it to like today he had a thing that had a Les Paul. I was like, it's digitized Les Paul, but he's trying to add that classic, you know, some of the guitar back into his pieces, and I love that kind of stuff. It's so
Yeah.
cool.
It's
And
cool. I love listening to. I'd much rather listen to something new like that than I don't listen to commercial radio, and occasionally I listen to either college radio or public radio, and if I'm in my car, and sometimes I'll bump into a classic rock station, and I'm like, that's the same song I heard 40 years ago that I was sick of, you know, and it's like, come on, man. There's so much good music out there, you know?
yeah, I totally agree. Which, you know, we will talk about. What kind of inspired you with Sentimental Junk? What was the inspirations for what creating the album? You kind of said you could definitely feel that there was like an upbeat vibe, like you were saying, coming out of COVID, I'm ready to rock. But what kind of inspired you throughout on this journey?
I don't really know, you know, that I always write. And this is actually my fifth solo album, since 2014. So I guess that's every other year, 2014, 2016, 18, 20, yeah, and 22. And it's just something I do, and I just try to come up with stuff that I think is good. And I like to edit stuff so you know it's not really taxing to listen to, and maybe make it, you know, I think like a 4-minute song's good, but a 3-minute song's even better. Again, it goes down to, you know, Tom Petty was a master of that. He had a saying, don't bore us, get to the chorus. And it's kind of like, you don't need to necessarily do 3 verses, the chorus, bridge, chorus, you know, you don't need to stick to a formula. You can shake it up a little bit. But I don't know really what inspires me to write. I guess just something that I might like that maybe emotionally connects with somebody else, you know?
Yeah, right on. And see, and that's what music's about, right? That's exactly what music's about. It's about conveying something onto, you know, onto your instrument, your
Yep.
voice, and then being able to express that, and then hoping, and this is, I think, every composer out there hopes that somebody feels it too. And most
That,
likely they are, especially if it's done right. And that's what
yeah,
you've
I totally agree. And I mean, you know, I'm a lot older than I was when I first started writing, so I'm kind of writing about things through my eyes now, versus being 20 years old, you know? I mean, because I think to me that would be disingenuous, you know? I'm not 20 years old anymore, and I've been through a lot of shit. So, you know, not to be bitter or anything, but more tempered and more about, you know, reflecting on what I've experienced back in my music, you know?
wisdom. Yeah, wisdom. Yeah, totally get it. What do you got, James? What do you got?
No, I was gonna say, when I was kind of reading through your stuff and like reading through like some of the stuff that you've done, I saw that you got a chance to work with on your, I think it was in 2017 or 2018, on your American Garden CD, with Yardbirds, Kenny Aronson.
Oh yeah.
That, like writing, I think it was 3 songs. I think it was.
Yeah, that was a cool experience. Kenny's played on all my solo stuff, and he was a huge sounding board on Sentimental Junk. You know, he probably was like a co-producer on the thing,
Yes.
because anything I wrote, I'd send it to him, and he's like, "Yeah, that's good. I got some ideas for it too." So he added, like on California's Got to My Girl, he added all the strings and the horns, and was great. But yeah, what happened in, I think it was 2017. He plays with the Yardbirds. He's the bass player. He's amazing musician. I mean, he's played with everybody. Dylan. He auditioned for the Stones when Bill Wyman left, and everybody you can think of. So one night he called me, and he had been working on the prior album I had done, which I think was Trampling Out the Vintage. And he said, the Yardbirds are doing a new studio album, first studio album in 20 years or something. And I'm going to write some songs, and I want to write them with you. So I'm like, that's awesome. So we wrote about 5 songs, and 3 of them were finished songs. And he had presented them to Jack Douglas, who was the producer, who was like one of my favorite producers, produced Lennon, produced Aerosmith, Cheap Trick. And they were, I mean, I was writing out charts for the band. And then unfortunately, they pulled the plug on the thing. They didn't want to. There was some politics involved that I don't even know to this day what happened. But everybody in the band was really upset about it, or the guys that wanted to do it were upset. And their guitar player, Johnny A., left right after that, so I'm sure he wasn't too happy with it. But so I had these songs anyway, and I'm like, I want to do something with them. I knew I was coming out with an album called American Garden, so I put the 3 songs on that album. And they're, you listen to them and you can kind of hear they kind of sound like the Yardbirds. 2 of them have harps. One of them has sort of a socially conscious lyric, I think, like Shape of Things. It's kind of like an answer to that. And I like that. They came out really well on that. And Kenny was co-wrote those songs with me, and it was a thrill to write with them. I love collaborating with people, and I really want to do more of that too, because it's just great when you can bounce ideas off of people. I mean, when I was with the Mambo Sons, that was the thing I loved about working with the singer Scott Lawson Pomeroy. Every single song was songs we wrote together, and that was cool.
Even John Butcher was on a song too. I saw that too.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
And we had him as a guest, and it was, you know what? It's almost like as a seasoned artist, you kind of now are into this. I want to collaborate with with good people, with good musicians, and have fun again. And maybe that's the wisdom of, as you got older, it's more about the collaborations, the sharing your thoughts and passion again. And maybe that's it, that's what happens. And I love that, because that's, I get that vibe. I'm at that age as well, where you realize that, we're on the downslope, not on the upslope.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is, I could have easily played all the instruments on this thing, but it was like, that's boring as hell, number one. And, when you got a chance to work with somebody like a Kenny Aronson or Mike Kozak, the drummer, or John Butcher, or who have you, Matt Ziner, the keyboard player, amazing keyboard player, was with Dickie Betts. He's now with the Weight Bands, touring all over the U.S. When you work with these people, you're like, they're bringing so much to the table because they're masters of their instruments, you listen to some of the bass playing on this record, or any of them that Kenny plays on, and it's just great, man. He thinks about things, having been in the business for 50 something years or whatever. And he's an amazing musician, and I love the fact that I get to work with him. He just celebrated his 70th birthday last month, and it was a great experience.
I love that. That's so cool, man. That's cool. Now you're up in the Northeast, up in Connecticut. That's where John's at. There's a lot of good music.
John's actually almost in New Hampshire. He's in the northernmost part of Massachusetts. So
yep,
he's about 100 miles away. Yeah.
but still close enough. I mean, there's
Yeah.
a lot of great music that's going on up there that I didn't even know about. I didn't know it was like a thing, and I was like, yeah, I was fascinated. Who else? And so is he from that area as well?
Kenny's originally from New York City. He lives in Pennsylvania now, outside of Philly. The drummer I work with is in Austin, Texas. So I mean, but up here, I mean, Connecticut is really well known for NRBQ, one of my all-time favorite bands. I got to open for them back in the day. They're really a big band out of Connecticut. I'm trying to think who else might be. Rick Derringer lived here for a while. Johnny Winter lived here for a while. Even though Johnny's a Southern boy, he spent the majority of his life in the Northeast, and he lived in Connecticut up until the point he passed. And I was very fortunate to work with him and to know him, and he was an amazing guy.
Yeah, that's
talk
cool.
about a legend.
Isn't that cool? Now, what is your favorite thing to do with folks? So you're kind of getting together as a kind of explain that whole, how does that process work when you're getting some of your favorite friends together to go and play together? How does that work? Do you guys play single tracks at a time, or are you guys playing as a group and then just recording while you're playing?
I've done it both ways, but this time, because it was the pandemic, it was 100% remote single tracks. I'd come up with the bones of the song, like a rhythm guitar part to a click track, for example, and I'd send it first to the drummer, and he'd come up with his part. I'd fly that in, and usually I discard the rhythm guitar at that point and put something on top of his drums, so it was grooving. And then I'd send it to Kenny. He'd put a bass line down. Matt Ziner, the keyboard player, is local. So he got to, we got to work on that. And so this one was like, it sounds like there's 4 or 5 people in the room at the same time, but there isn't because of the pandemic. But it worked out really well. I mean, it doesn't sound like, different people recording at different times. It sounds like one band. And when I don't really have a solo band. I when I play live, I still play with my band, the Mambo Sons, and that's a whole other thing. I mean, we just get together, and I love that as well. It's a totally different thing, though.
Yeah, it's more like jamming and having some typical songs you guys are gonna play, but then throw in some jamming and some.
Yeah. I mean, we don't really jam too much, but we rock. We can rock still.
There you go. What do you got, James?
Still trying to think of I know I wrote down a couple questions, but yeah, you guys are kind of mostly answering them as I go. So yeah.
That's cool, man. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, it is 6:52. We got 8 minutes left. So okay. I got some questions, and I'm going to say from the guitarist. I see that there's quite a bit of collection behind you.
Yeah.
A quick tour of what is behind you. Are you kind of going a little bit over it?
I can kind of move around. So we have got the Zemitis over. Oh, I keep doing this. This Zemitis. This is a 70s gold top Les Paul, which is called a deluxe, but it's kind of a one-off guitar because it's got P90 pickups, which are a different type of pickup than they traditionally had. They usually had the small mini humbuckers. And I got a reissue Les Paul there. I've got a Gibson SG.
Wow.
What else is behind the SG? The SG is a they got a hollow body Gibson 335. Behind that, I was an endorsee for Brian Moore Guitars about 20 years ago, and they built me a custom guitar. And then I got the Fender stuff down there. I got a couple of Telecasters. I got, I think, 4 or 5 or 6, looks like 6 pre-CBS Strats, and then some late 60s Strats, and then I've got way at the end, I got a 12-string Strat. And I'm not really a collector, believe it or not. I mean, I play all these guitars, and if I don't play something, it's got to go on to the next person. It's important not to hoard stuff and to play what you're actually owning. And if you don't, somebody else is going to do it. we're just caretakers for these instruments because they're going to be around for a long time, you know.
I agree with you. That's the big piece of my playing now is picking out a guitar that I'm going to want to play. And then being able to at least throw it into the rotation at least once a week.
Yep.
Being able to just pick it up, play it, jam with it for a while. I picked up an SG, so I got the 60. So it's the redone SG, but
Yep.
with the vibrola on it.
Yep. Yeah.
Which I love that guitar. It's been one of my favorites that I've been playing for. And I just want to sit and play it all the time. But then you're like, but these other babies, they all need some love.
Right. That's exactly right. And when you're recording too, it's great to change it up a little bit too. And sometimes you're like, that sounds good with a Strat, but it might sound better with a Tele, or might sound good with a hollow body or a Les Paul or something. And you can, when you're doing your own recording and you're not on a studio clock, you can experiment and kind of come up with some interesting things. Sometimes it's cool to have a Gibson on one channel and a Fender on the other, so it really gives you some texture.
I agree. That's awesome. That's really good.
And I mean, the other half of the equation are the amps too. I mean, the amps are, give us just as much tone as the guitar in their own way. And I like to record the amps pretty loud, but not, I mean, I'm like the type of player where I like a little bit of distortion, a little bit of overdrive. Some guys love, real heavy overdrive, and that's cool too for what they're doing. But my style is kind of, right before the amp is totally breaking up. I kind of like that, just getting that a little bit of hair on there,
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I picked up. And I was like I picked up a Fender on there. I know that you had a tube. So you said that you had the Marshall 50 watt.
Yeah, that's right in back of me. That's the white amp back there. Yeah.
They're beautiful amps. Such beautiful amps.
That's a cool amp. Yeah. It's actually it's a bass head too. It's a 50 watt bass head, but for whatever reason, it sounded great. And then years later, I've owned it probably for 20 something years. Years later, I was reading an article, and that was Dwayne Allman's favorite amp, was the 1969 50 watt bass Marshall, and it's called the Model 1986. And that's the same exact, amp that he used, and he got great tone.
It's about chasing tone. What do you think of the modeling amps like Line 6 and some of the other?
I'm a purist, but one of my gigs is writing and doing gear reviews, and I had done a gear review on a couple of them, and I was really impressed with them. I mean, I don't know anything about how they might handle themselves on stage or whatever, but I suspect probably pretty well, because a lot of guys are, if you go see live bands, I mean, they're just using modeling. There's no backline anymore. It's like coming through the monitors or coming through the PA. So, I think if it works for you, that's cool. I mean, my friend Johnny A is an amazing guitar player. If you ever get a chance, he was with the Yardbirds. Now he's got just a solo thing called Me and My Guitars, and he does a lot with loops, and he's got a couple modeling amps. And he gets some of the greatest sounds I've ever heard. So check that out if he's around. I mean, he'd probably be a good guest for your show because he's so interesting. He played with Bobby Whitlock, and he played with Peter. He was Peter Wolf's musical director for a long time too, and amazing guitar player.
I love that. Yeah, we'll definitely have to pick him up. Try to pick him up. Try to sweep him off his feet and get some tasty lick love. So yeah absolutely. I recently picked up the Line 6 Spider 5, which is the modeling amp, which is like 240 watt. And I use it at like in my closet.
Yeah. So how do you like it? I mean,
I love it. I picked it. The first thing I picked up was that Spark, right? So it has the Spark, positive grid Spark.
Yep.
And I was like, I really liked the fact that I could do different tones and I could play all my favorite songs, and then also I could play my own songs and pick I could be in a blues mood to just click on and not have to do anything with pedals or anything. It's just nice. Yep. So you just pre-program, I have pre-programmed stuff, and that's the same way with the Line 6 is better. It's a bigger
is.
sound.
Okay.
It's a bigger amp. It has 240 watts compared to this like 35. And not that the Positive Grid's still a great little amp that you could plug into your, it's audio interface as well. You could throw it in perfect, but I really like the features on this, and I love some of just even the stuff that comes out of the box. So I've been enjoying the heck out of it, and I play on TikTok every Friday night, and I'll just sit and flip through the settings and then just play what I feel like, and then maybe it'll be like some metal, and then it'll be the next click is a blues. So
that's
playing
great.
some blues. I love that stuff. Yeah.
The thing I've noticed about going through YouTube and seeing other guitar players and what they're doing, the technical level of guitar players, I mean, it's amazing. You got, these 9-year-old girls from Asia doing a note for note perfect version of Eddie Van Halen's Eruption. Granted, they didn't write it, but still, it's like, man, the guitar players out there are great. I mean, there's a lot of great musicians out there, and some of them are just happy to play in their bedrooms or whatever. So I think the instrument has continued to evolve, and the technical ability of players has gone way, way up since when I was a kid.
And I think that YouTube has helped kind of make that happen. There's a lot of how-tos, and I think that that's up the level of musicianship, because there's so many great tutorials and so many great things. Because it used to be you had to afford a good teacher. And
right.
back in the 80s, and when I was learning guitar, it was like, hey, I brought in my tape, teach me this lick. And that's all they would do. There wasn't anybody telling you how and why.
Right.
Now YouTube has created, their own music theory. This is why you put these together. So here's the song, but then here's why it works.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, you want to learn how to do it, whether it's, fixing your taillight on your Toyota, you go to YouTube. I mean, you want to know how to learn a specific song. I mean, it's all there. It's a great thing. I think it's a real positive.
I think so too. I think that there's also this is the one thing that I was talking to my mom about, who's another guitarist. She said the thing, though, that you get out of wisdom in playing a while is some of those bends and some of those things where you're holding the note, some of the passion, some of the way that you're playing and technique comes in time, and when to release that bend, when to play that slide and how long.
Yeah.
Those come with time, and those aren't something that you can be taught right out of the bag. That comes with time and feel. A lot of that feel that you're playing is
fair enough. I think that's really, really accurate,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's what comes, I've been playing a long time too. And I think that though I just play in, for myself for the most part, it's about, like when that's what makes me feel it, is that feel, like how, oh yeah. I remember, and I think about, sometimes I think about guitarists that I've heard use that lick, and then I'm like connected with that whole thing there too. So I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, good times. So again, everybody out there, Sentimental Junk, go check it out. It is on all of the major streaming music sources. So I've listened to it on YouTube Music. I've listened to it on Apple Music, Spotify. Is there a preference for you? Is it like Spotify gives you a couple bucks or a couple nickels?
Yeah, I subscribe to Apple Music, so that's okay. If I was going to listen to that album, I would listen to it on that. But I also have CDs available that you can buy, cool. Anywhere online. I sell them through the website, which is tomguerra.com. So people could check it out that way. I have all sound samples on my website. And I also have the interviews I've conducted over the years with a lot of great guitar players on my website. So it's worth checking out.
And what is your website?
I'm sorry, what is
your website?
It's tomguerra.com.
Perfect. And
Yep.
it's GUERRA. Yes.
That's right. Yeah. TOMGUERRA.com. And we just right before we rolled this album out, we redid the website, brought it into the 21st century. And
Yay. That's what you have to do these days. I'm an IT guy. So my daytime job is IT. So anybody who understands and gets why IT is so important and how to market IT well is always a big fan of mine, because it's the wave of the future. Getting that stuff down is how to be able to separate yourself from other folks is by creating good tech that helps show off your music and show off whatever your talent is. So,
absolutely
so. Cool. Anything last thoughts, James?
Sorry, cut off.
Yeah, cut off a little bit. Yeah.
No, it's just it's been amazing listening to your stuff and getting to know more about you and your history. Just reading about you. Like I said, I think it was yesterday I was reading the articles about you, and that's how I got more like the knowledge of the Yardbirds and really all the people that you kind of met like throughout like your playing history. So it's just been amazing, and we do appreciate you kind of jumping on with us.
Great. Well, James, thanks so much for having me on. I'm going to make a parfait very soon. My wife makes a great one too, and we love granola and Greek yogurt and strawberries and and Andy, thanks so much for having me on as well. I really enjoyed it, and let me know when it rolls, and I'll post it to my media platforms as well.
Well, the good thing is it's rolling now.
It's rolling right now. Okay.
It's live and in living color. So you can post it as soon as you are done here. So thank you guys so much. Again, we had so many great people in the chat. This doesn't happen without everybody and we have some regulars that come in, and we are just so blessed and fortunate to have people just wanting to come in and listen to some great music and listen to great discussions about music. And of course, desserts. So we look forward to seeing you guys next time. And James, you got anything to say? He's saying something, but we're not sure what he's saying because I think it cut off. Yep. I think he was saying, "Stay tasty, my friends." That is what he was saying.
Stay tasty. I'm sorry. I didn't hear like the last word. Stay tasty.
We'll see you guys later.
All right. Take care.